Hello and welcome to my 5.4 Arcane Mage DPS guide, where I'm going to try to keep it real short and sweet and easy and help you understand how to play Arcane Mage to the best of your ability. Um, Usually most of these videos start out with telling you about the talents, but I think the talents are simple enough where they really need no explanation, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a little overview anyway on just the talents that affect your DPS, not the other ones. On the first tier, I went with Presence of Mind. You don't really have to. A lot of people go with Ice Flows because Arcane Mage doesn't really get a lot of mobility in the fights. But I do not like Ice Flows because you get 3 stacks of them, 3 charges of it, and you have to hit that button or click whatever you do. I high key everything. You actually have to hit that button 3 times in order to move during a fight. You can't just hit it one time and then cast 3 spells. You actually have to hit one each time when you're about to cast something, and that's very distracting for me. So I went with Presence of Mind. Um, Living Bomb is obviously the best single target DPS dot that you have on the 75 level tier right there. And on the last part, I went with Rune of Power. I really don't like it. I really have never liked Rune of Power. That's why I have Frost as my second spec. Most of the stat weights on Frost are pretty much the same, so it doesn't matter if I have a lot of mastery. I'm going to do just about the same DPS as I did if I went with a lot of haste. And plus, I have a lot of haste anyway, so I'm near 1 second cast, so it's better for me to go mastery for Frost anyway. Invocation gives you horrible mana regeneration, so nobody goes with that. And Cancer's Ward used to be awesome. Nobody in the game hardly even used it. But back in the Heart of Fear days on fights like Garalon where you're taking constant AoE damage, that was awesome. It gave you a 25% damage increase, and if you watched your mana pool when you used it, you could actually use it to get the most mana regeneration you could out of it. But I went with Rune of Power talent because that's pretty much the only option you got with Arcane Mages. In the Glyph tree, there's only 2 that I see that can affect your DPS here uh, significantly. Obviously, the Arcane Power talent will help. Self-explanatory. You don't really need it, but I think you would do better off with that. Uh, there's really not a lot of options here either because they basically made it to where most of your talents and glyphs that you're picking are mostly just cosmetic. But I mean, I went with that. Arcane Explosion will give you a lot more AoE. The only there's one spot left after that, and the only talent glyph I could see in this whole glyph, all of the potential glyphs that I could get is the glyph of rapid displacement, where you get 2 charges of blink on fights like Heroic Malkorok. That is very useful because a lot of times some people can't get to a puddle fast enough, or maybe they're just not paying attention. You can get there faster, and then if you actually have to get back to your spot immediately, you can with another blink. That really helps in a lot of fights, and I'd rather use that than anything else on this list. And before I show you the video, I put a little list here of just a few things you should keep in mind while DPSing. There's a bunch of other stuff I can run over, but you've probably seen it in every other video. I'm just going to give you the stuff that none of these other people are really going to tell you. But if you don't pay attention, you're not going to notice it. The number one thing you should do in your rotation is keep in mind that you should use arcane missiles over blast if you have 2 stacks of missiles, or if you have at least 3 stacks of arcane charges. Because if you have 3 stacks of arcane charge, you use an arcane missile, it'll give you your 4th stack, and you can use your 4-set bonus to its full potential, which I'll show you an image of that where you can see what the 4-set and the 2-set does. And if you have like 2 stacks of arcane charges or 1 stack of arcane charge, and you only have 1 stack of arcane missiles, and you go ahead and use it, well, you're gonna waste it on like the next charge that you get. Like if you only got 1 charge arcane, if you only got one arcane charge and you use your missile, then I mean, you're just saving mana on the second arcane charge when you could just wait to use it on the third one. Um, you'll be able to see more what I'm talking about when I actually show you myself DPSing. Uh, Use missiles directly after an arcane blast and before casting another one to ensure that you do not waste any potential arcane missile procs that you may get. Everybody knows if you play an arcane mage, every time you cast arcane blast, you get a chance to proc arcane missiles. All right. Well, if you got one stack of arcane missiles and you're in the middle of arcane blast cast, the worst thing you could do is immediately after that cast another arcane blast, because let's say you get a proc right after that first arcane blast, well then you're going to have two stacks of arcane missiles, and then you went ahead and you queued up another arcane blast. Well, you could potentially get another stack, but you can only get up to two at a time, so you're going to waste that extra one that you could have got. Arcane missiles does more damage and DPS than arcane blast, and they have the same cast time. Like arcane blast will have a certain set cast time for your character, depending on the amount of haste you got and everything. Just mouse over the arcane missile tooltip and look at it. You can see that it has the same channel time as arcane blast, and if you do the math, multiply 5, because you're going to cast, and with each arcane missile cast you're going to cast 5 arcane missiles. It'll tell you the damage of each one, so multiply that number by 5, you're going to get a bigger number than an arcane blast, no matter how many charges that you get. And it costs no mana. That's a great thing. It also is the main focus of your 4-set bonus that comes in patch 5.4. Also, Arcane Barrage does more DPS and damage than either Arcane Blast or missiles, regardless of how many charges you have. Now, when you're using something like Alter Time and you're about to come out of it, you only got 5 seconds of Alter Time. So what I'll normally do is I'll just keep doing my normal rotation, but right before I come out of Alter Time, I'll hit that Arcane Barrage to get that last bit of extra DPS in, and to get the most DPS out of that Alter Time as I can, because when Alter Time resets, you're going to get all your stacks back and all your mana and all the procs, everything back. So, and that's another thing to keep in mind, because if you're attacking mobs or like anything in a dungeon, just adds or something, and it's fixing to die, instead of queuing up another cast, since Arcane Missile Barrage since Barrage is actually instant cast, and the whatever you're attacking is about to die, go ahead and hit that Arcane Barrage, because it's like I just said, it's instant cast and it does more damage than either the blast or the missile, so you're going to get the most DPS and the damage done if you actually do that. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And to go over one more time about the thing that I got tongue-tied about earlier, your 4-set basically focuses on your arcane missiles, so what you want to do is get the most out of it. So instead of being a bad DPS and waiting after you cast an arcane blast to see if you're going to get a proc or not before you decide the next thing you're going to do, you have to always be queuing something up. You got to be queuing your next spell up. You got to be constantly doing something. If you're not, you're going to do bad DPS, because it's called damage per second. If you haven't learned that already, you know it now. I mean, you should know this by now, but there it is. You got to be constantly doing something. So if you got one arcane charge and you cast an arcane blast and you got one arcane missile charge, cast the arcane blast first, then use the missile, because if you actually get a proc right after the blast, you're not going to cast your next arcane blast and have 2 procs. You're going to use that one and then come back with an arcane blast, and just do that over and over. Now, if you have 3 charges of arcane, 3 arcane charges, and no matter how many charges of missiles you got, go ahead and use that first, because you're immediately going to have your maximum of 4 arcane charges to go with after that. And arcane missiles always does more damage and DPS than the blast anyway, so go ahead and do that when you have 3 charges. But if you got like 1 or 2 charges, use the arcane blast and then the missiles right after that, unless you have 2 charges. Now, why would you do that if you only if you only got 2 charges of if you got your maximum of 2 charges of arcane missiles? That's because, like I said, you don't want to waste any potential procs that you might get. If you got 2 charges of arcane missiles and you use a blast again, and you could have potentially got another proc, you just wasted it, because you only get a maximum of 2 anyway. So that's basically it. And let me go ahead and show you what myself DPSing, and maybe you'll be able to see me doing that. I think I made a couple of mistakes, but here it is.